Ruckerman.
Real takes over fake debates, authentic truth. Can't underestimate SB and Sean breaking through the noise, serving real talk, the genuine choice. No pretense, no hidden schemes. Just sports, passion, fueling dreams. From the field to the court, every play that's made. Real takes over fake debates. Turn it up, hear the honest sound. Unfiltered sports all year round. Discussions pure, no masquerade. Real takes over fake debates. Turn it up. Over fake debates. Real takes over fake debates. Real takes over fake debates.
And we are live. Sbtalksports, Sean Webb, real takes over fake debates. It is Monday. Sean, how you doing today, brother?
Doing good, SB. How you doing, man?
Chilling good, man. Chilling. Appreciate everybody watching. Make sure you guys like, make sure you guys share, make sure you guys subscribe while I'm trying to fix the Facebook Live, trying to get it more public. But yeah, I've been doing good. You know, it's game 5 today of the NBA Finals. You know, we got to talk about the finals. A big trade has happened. Obviously, a trade has happened. Then you got the next thing going on with Kevin Durant, the Kevin Durant news. So we're trying to see what's going on with Kevin Durant. But we got some baseball news and some football news. Well, and maybe I might have a suggestion to throw out there too about football and the teams. And what else am I missing? We talk about the finals, and we might, if we have time, we might have a build the perfect player segment, and we got to talk about Stephen A. Smith too. But out of all the craziness going on, I just seen coaches get fired for after winning a championship. I have players talking about getting moved, but the one person who find a way to keep his job secured is Billy Donovan, and I don't know how. The Chicago Bulls are in the process of extending the contract of head coach Billy Donovan. Obviously, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame for what he did in college. Pretty much has a losing record with the Chicago Bulls since he's been in the Chicago Bulls coach. But it came out news because New York fired Tom Thibodeau, and New York clearly showed that they don't have a plan. So they fired Thibodeau and called every other team asking about their coach. Then when they called Chicago about Billy Donovan, Chicago was like, no. And now there's news coming out that the Bulls might extend Billy Donovan. Sean, why?
SB, you know that person, you know at least one person in your life who's in a relationship that probably shouldn't be in a relationship.
Yes.
And the only reason why they're in a relationship is because the person they're with doesn't want to be alone. That's the Chicago Bulls. They don't want to be alone. And it's a lot easier to stay in that relationship when you just don't want to be alone. Like you'll put up with the crazy and you'll put up with some of the nonsense. That's That's really what it is. But in all seriousness, I think sometimes we're a little too hard on coaches, and sometimes we're not hard enough on coaches, and sometimes we need to find that middle. Is Billy Donovan a bad coach? No. But Billy Donovan's not a great NBA coach, obviously.
No.
He's a good coach. And then the second question you have to ask is has the front office and by extension the ownership and Jerry Reinsdorf, have they done a good job in supplying what they need to put a consistent winner on the floor? And the answer, I think, is overwhelmingly no. So I think they're truthful about that, and they're going to own that. But once it came out that the Knicks were interested in talking to Billy Donovan, it's like, well, hey, we may actually have a good coach here. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to, for me, SB, just he's a good coach, but the front office and by extension the ownership have to do a better job of putting pieces together that give the Bulls a legit chance, and they just have not done that in the Billy Donovan era consistently.
Yeah. So for me, Wu, shout out Tiffany in the chat, and Wu said I would have given Sam Cassell a chance. AK fears change at the end. Yeah, he does. He does fear change because he was like, we was stuck with what was his, like, with the DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine. I think we waited like a year too late to make that trade done. Then AK, when you see it's not working, you got to make a change. And then you coming into a new era of Chicago Bulls basketball, what maybe a new face, a new voice wouldn't be bad to have, because obviously, I'm still shocked that Sam Cassell has not got an opportunity to be a head coach. And I don't understand why the Knicks wouldn't possibly try to get Sam Cassell. I think Sam Cassell is a great coach to give a chance to. Won't trade anybody, won't improve the style overall. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But Sean White, I don't know. I'm just it irks my soul with this team, man. Because it's my team, and we thought we was getting a different insight or a different guy, but we got AK running this team. But I don't see no difference from when we had him and Garpax, honestly.
So what's the common thread there? It's Jerry Reinsdorf.
Jerry Reinsdorf, yeah.
That those guys can only do what Jerry Reinsdorf is okay with them doing. If The Last Dance didn't show anything, is that Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't publicly want to be the bad guy.
No, never.
The GM or the coach is going to publicly be the bad guy. So, that's the way it is. But they're doing what he's saying he's okay with.
It irks me because I'm not trying to go too crazy on Reinsdorf, because this is my thing. I'm not trying to get that on it. It irks me because he cares about the White Sox more, and he doesn't do nothing for that team either. That team has been bad too. Then he'll come back when the White Sox will be like bad or something, and then come with the Bulls and act like he cares about all Reinsdorf really wants to do, and it shows like how the team has been ran and how we've been doing things. He wants to go 41-41 every year. He wants to be right at a play, and the play-in was the worst thing that we could have thought of as for Chicago Bulls fans, because right? That's an extra game. Now it's another game to sell out the United Center. So now he go in for the play-in spot, go 41-41, and then be done. Like, I'm about done with Reinsdorf, and if anybody who can't wait for him to sell a team, it probably would be me, or at least try to be competitive. Like, will he change? I doubt it, because I know the Derrick Rose era tricked us a little bit, thinking that, oh yeah, we do got a shit. No, they gave us Derrick Rose, and he luckily became more than what we thought he was going to be and made us competitive. That's it. But if you look at the history of the Bulls and what this team has done over the years, nothing has changed at all.
But even with that, SB, before Derrick Rose got there, the Bulls were a competitive team when you had Kurt Heinrich and obviously Luol Deng and Ben Gordon. Like it was, and you had Joe Kim, the year before, Derrick Rose. Like it was a competitive team. You saw like the tenets of this is going to be a very competitive roster,
Right.
and I do think again sometimes it comes down to what is ownership want? What does ownership want? Jerry Reinsdorf traditionally does not like spending money.
He won't.
He does not like spending money, which is his prerogative. So if his expectation is, hey, I'm not going to spend a lot of money here, just put a competitive roster together, then so be it. But I think, the onus has to go on him more than anything. And there are times where, again, I think there's some moves where you say, okay, yeah, that could be a good move. Getting Zach LaVine into Jimmy Butler. Well, no, let's go back. The Jimmy Butler trade, I thought the Bulls did a great job in getting what they got for Jimmy Butler, right? Getting Laurie Marketing, getting Zach LaVine.
Yes, that was a good trade.
It was a good trade. Getting Chris Dunn at the time was like, oh, okay, you're getting basically 3 potential starters for one guy. But again, the marketing situation didn't pan out well for different reasons. And obviously Chris Dunn kind of bounced around until he kind of found his home in a role. But so I think it's some of it has to do with what is the team trying to do? What does the team want to do? The saving grace of Derrick Rose not being able to, continue to fulfill his potential was you had Jimmy Butler and you had a young Jimmy Butler, and it's like, oh, this guy, we got a steal here. This guy can play. And so it's always been some sort of like silver lining in some of the bad things that have happened with the Bulls. But the problem is the silver lining doesn't lead to building a competitive roster year in and year out. You have to actually do that. And I don't think the Bulls have been consistently trying to do that. And that's really the problem.
And then the crazy part about it, Sean, I'm glad you brought up the Kurt Heinrich and the Ben Gordon. You know why that team, he liked those teams during that time? Because they was at the bottom of the East, just making it close to the playoff spot. And guess what? Because game 81, game 82 mattered. And that's all Ransdale want. And it's like, bro, we at the top of the attendance, man. Come on, we gotta try at some point. We gotta do something different. But speaking of bringing up trades and everything, Sean, we did get a trade. Memphis Grizzlies have traded Desmond Bane to the Magic for KCP, Cole Anthony, and 4 first-round picks. And if you guys have been watching Real Takes Over Fake Debates, me and Sean will do predictions. We do off-season prediction. When we had the Grizzlies, I said this trade verbatim. If you go back, look at the video, go look at that. We made that video about a month ago. Go back, go check it out. I ain't got to play it, but go back and check it out. And I called it to a T. Y'all see. You see, if y'all watched that video, y'all seen I called it. I was like, if I trade Desmond Bane, I'm going to center it around. I had Isaac in there too, talking about maybe Jonathan Isaac, but KCP, Cole Anthony, and 4 first-round picks is outstandingly good. But, Sean, what's your reaction to this trade? Is it a good? I want your grade on both sides. And then a lot of people saying they gave him too much to get Desmond Bane. So what you think?
So I'll answer the second question first. And I want people to understand when you talk about trades, it's not just the players, it's the contract. So a lot of times when a team is trying to get off a contract, they will attach things to that contract to get off of it. So the Magic wanted to get off of KCP's contract.
Yeah.
Right. He was going, last year was the first year of a 3-year deal, 3 year, $6 million deal. KCP didn't really have a great season last year. So in a lot of ways, it's what are we trying to do to get off of this contract? Now, for the Magic perspective, trading KCP, trading Cole Anthony, again, a little bit of addition by subtraction because they've invested in Anthony Black. Obviously, you have Jalen Suggs. You have some young guys that you really, really like. It's really more addition by subtraction. But if the Magic have had one issue over the last few years in the Jamal Mosley era, they're not a good shooting team. Desmond Bane can shoot the ball. they're a team that does occasionally go through scoring droughts, even with Paolo and with Franz. We know Desmond Bane can score. He's a 20-point per game scorer. What does this trade really do for them? It takes them out of the play-in. It puts them potentially as a top 5 or 6 seed in the East. But let's cut the nonsense right now. Does this trade make them better than Cleveland? No. They haven't been out of the first round since Dwight Howard.
You gotta get man.
No, I'm just saying.
Cleveland fool's gold, man. Cleveland's fool's gold.
I'm just saying Cleveland did win 64 games. Fool's gold or not, they won 64 games. And again, we can talk about what happened in the second round, whether it's the injuries or just getting outplayed by Indiana or whatever. But the bottom line is this makes the Magic potentially more dynamic, but we have to see it. So, I don't grade trades and to say, oh, this is I think it's a good move for the Magic because the Magic get what they've been lacking, which is more shooting. Yeah. But we got to see if it works on the floor. I think it can work. I think it will work, but it's going to come down to Jamal Mosley and that coaching staff figuring out ways to integrate Desmond Bane to make him comfortable with Paolo, with Franz, with Jalen Suggs, provided Jalen Suggs is healthy. The Magic still have issues, though. One of their big issues for me is they don't have a point guard because Jalen Suggs, I don't know if he's a point guard. I think he's kind of a two, kind of playing the point. So can they get that figured out? Also, this triggers the second apron. They're going to be a second apron team because Paolo's going to sign the rookie max extension this summer, which is about 5 years, $247 million, right? They got 3-4 guys now who in 2026 will be making $35 million and more. So I don't think they're done with their roster. I think they got to figure out something with Jonathan Isaac. He's probably the other contract that's probably got to move this summer.
They got to move him.
But so that's from the Magic perspective. From Memphis's perspective, again, we got Memphis has both Ja and Jaren Jackson Jr. who are extension eligible. Jaren Jackson Jr. first. Excuse me. So this frees up about $3 million from their payroll to extend Jaren Jackson. Let me say renegotiate and extend Jaren Jackson. What that's going to look like is they got to figure that out. But they got to figure that out, and then they got to extend Ja at some point. But this is the new way of the NBA. You got 2 max players or 2 close to max players, and you got to fill out the roster around them. That's what I think this move does, is it helps them fill out the roster around them. What it's going to look like, again, they got a new head coach. That remains to be seen, but I think it's a good move for both sides for different reasons. So, but you called it, SB. I have to give you your props. You called it and you said it. So, props to the clairvoyant SB.
But I think it was more from the point of, and I think this is what happened was, like I said, if I was the Grizzlies, I'd go talk to Jaren Jackson. If the number is looking like what is good for us as a team and organization, I'm keeping you. Then if not, we had to get rid of Desmond, and then that's what I believe happened. So that means Jaren Jackson will probably get his extension, and it won't be an outrageous number, but I think it would be a good number for him and for the Memphis Grizzlies to be definitely probably under the second apron, because I don't think the Grizzlies is a type of organization that go over beyond when it comes to spending money. So I think they want to be under those cap numbers. But for me, for both sides, I'm gonna do the Orlando Magic side first. I think if I had to grade this trade, I'll give it a B+ from the fact of you got the exact player that you needed more than you chased the name. And like you said, the outside shooting was kind of questionable during a point in time with this team. They needed another shot creator, another guy who can be an offensive threat, especially on the perimeter. So I think Desmond Bane was a perfect fit. Only thing I was 4 first rounders is I think this trade would have been great if they would have did KCP, Anthony, and 2 first rounders before altogether. I know you expect to get a superstar when it comes back to that trade. But another reason I put it in the high B is because the East is wide open. And I think this move does move them closer. Now, does it guarantee them win the East? No. But I think every team in the East, with Boston being out next season, with Jason Tatum, now probably is going to take him, a year to get fully healthy, really to get back into Tatum form. I think every team in the East needs to go all out. All out. The East is wide open. Like the East is so wide open. Is at a point I can't tell you who's the favorite to come out the East.
Well,
Anybody can do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, because we know this summer is going to be crazy. We're going to see a lot of player movement this summer via trade.
Yeah.
So I don't dispute that. Again, my thing is it's Desmond Bane's a really good player.
Yes.
But when they said mega trade, I was like, is it a mega trade? I don't know if I wouldn't call it a mega trade. It's a good trade, but I wouldn't call it a mega trade. You know, Desmond Bane's never played on All-Star Weekend, and Desmond Bane's never been All NBA. I like Desmond Bane. He's a really good player, but let's pump our brakes just a little bit. Saying this is they'll be competing for a chip next year. Like they got to get out of the first round. They ain't been out of the first round. Ain't been out of the first round since the Obama administration. So let's not do that, right? And again, I know the Boston situation, but again, I mentioned Cleveland, the Knicks, the Pacers. There could be another team in the East, Detroit. I still would put Detroit over them. Yes, because remember, they're getting Jaden Ivey back next year. So I mean, and Jaden Ivey was so again. You mentioned the East is wide open. I think the East is going to be incredibly interesting next season. But before we put the Magic in, the chip conversation, get out of the first round.
I agree with you on that. I'm not mad at it. They got to earn it.
Yeah.
But from the other side perspective, we got to talk about from the Grizzly side. I think getting Cole Anthony and four first-round picks, and one of them is from the Phoenix Suns. Oh, my God, this was an excellent trade for the Memphis Grizzlies. Yeah. And then, obviously, they came out with, from the Grizzly side of things, they had once you seen Desmond Bane get traded, everybody thought, oh, it's time to blow it up. They finna blow it up. Everybody finna call for Ja. The Grizzlies came out and said they are not looking to move Ja Morant or Jaren Jackson, which I think is smart on their end. Why would they do that? I don't think there's no reason to blow it up. You move one. You had three guys on big contracts. One of them had to go. You picked the one that was probably the least star out of both guys, and you got a haul for him. So I think the Grizzlies did an outstanding job on this trade. So when I look at it from what the Grizzlies have done, I get the Grizzlies an A, and I'm glad they nipped it in the bud, because you knew if they didn't come out and say this, all you was going to be hearing about who Ja was playing for and what jersey Ja was going to be in a whole week. So I'm glad they did. So for the Grizzlies side, for me, I just think this was an outstanding move. It helps their cap situation. It opens it up the door for extension for Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson, and you get a haul of good players, and you get a vet, and you get a young backup in Cole Anthony. The only question is, I'm worried about what they're going to do with Scottie Pippen Jr. They might keep both of them because of how much Ja get hurt, but I'm worried about what's going to be the minutes that's taken for Scottie Pippen Jr.
Well, I will tell you this. Don't be surprised if Memphis decides to start Scottie Pippen Jr. in the backcourt next to Ja Morant next season.
I wouldn't mind that. Scottie Pippen Jr. is actually nice.
Yeah, so and also and this is what drives me crazy when people talk about, they're going to trade Morant, they're going to trade Jaren Jackson Jr. They're only trading those guys if those guys have made it clear they don't want to be in Memphis anymore and they'll leave as soon as they become free agents, or B, that again the finances say they have to make a move. Making the Bane trade means the finances mean they don't have to make a move. So from my perspective, let's look at these markets. How do these teams build? Well, Memphis is not a free agent destination franchise.
No.
We know that. They are a team that drafts very well and they develop very well. That's why getting the 4 first-round picks is such a win for them, because whoever they draft, if they keep those players, they're likely going to develop them in their system. To be, contributors with your foundational pieces in Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and I'm going to add Zach Edey to that because I think he's one of their foundational pieces. So, these teams don't just want to trade their star players. That's not the way this works, particularly if you're not a place that gets star players in free agency, and that's not Memphis.
I'm going to say I can't name you one that they got. I can't name you one. Okay. But Sean, we gotta go. It's getting to the season of trades now. We're getting close to draft day. Breaking news just dropped right here too, Sean. And I waited to say it because it's going into the next story we talk about, which is going to be Kevin Durant. But breaking news reports just came out. The Knicks have no interest in trading for Kevin Durant. So Kevin Durant will not be headed back to New York. Good or bad thing for the New York Knicks?
I think the Knicks have their eyes on other things to fill out their roster. I don't think it makes sense for them to even be thinking about a Kevin Durant trade until they figure out who the head coach is.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, if they hire Mike Budenholzer, I'm just using Budenholzer as an example. Kevin Durant just played for Mike Budenholzer, so it would make sense for that to happen. You know, if they hire Frank Vogel, Kevin Durant just played for Frank Vogel the season before last.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think it only makes sense for them to feel that way. Apparently he was interested. There was an interest at one point, I think during the trade deadline or whatever, from the Knicks, and they decided after they didn't get him that they could move on.
Yeah.
I don't expect the Knicks to make crazy change with their roster, so
they don't need to though. Honestly,
they don't need to. And again, I think short of Devin Booker saying, "Hey, go get Cat," to the Suns, there's not really an easy trade for Kevin Durant to get to New York. Because again, it would have to take some combination of OG Anunoby and Mikal Bridges or Mitchell Robinson, some combination of that to make it work. And I just don't think the Knicks have interest in that.
Yeah, I think the Knicks, you had a great run this season. Your team is actually fine. I do like the combination of OG and Mikal Bridges. I just think you needed more bench play, and you needed a coach to actually play those guys on the bench. That's what I think. I think that's what they need to add. I think everything else they started five is fine to me. I think they got the right core guys. I just think adding more bench depth and adding a coach who would use the bench, and then adding a coach who would come up with a better offensive scheme where you just won't be heavily weighed on Jalen Brunson. I think that'd be different. I think that's all the Knicks need. But still on Kevin Durant, the regular news was obviously Kevin Durant's on the market. Minnesota is one of the teams who was looking to try to get Kevin Durant. You know, Edwards loved Kevin Durant. That's his favorite player. But Kevin Durant said, nah, I'll pass. Phoenix Suns star Kevin Durant does not have any desire to join the Minnesota Timberwolves. Is that a good or bad thing for KD? It was a bad thing for Minnesota regardless, but there's that thing we talk about, like, some organizations don't land free agents. Minnesota is one of those too. So you got to draft you a KD, man. Ain't nobody go to Minnesota. But what's your reaction to this?
A little surprising. Maybe it's because of how far they got in the playoffs that he doesn't want to look like he's jumping to another, situation that's similar to the one he jumped to in 2016 or whatever. So I don't know if there's some of that factors in. I know it gets cold. It gets cold in Minnesota.
Oh, yes, it does.
It gets very cold in Minnesota.
It gets cold in Minnesota.
So I think that might factor in as well. Ultimately, if the three destinations that he listed are true, they're all warm weather destinations. They're all no state income tax destinations. I think that's what he wants. After playing in Phoenix, that's nice weather, no state income tax. I can understand why he wants to, stay in that scenario. But it may not matter that he has no desire. It may not matter because Phoenix has the responsibility to the organization to do what's best for the organization.
Yep.
So if Minnesota comes with the best package, go get you. Don't go in Phoenix. Get to Minnesota. Go to Burlington. Get you a nice winter coat and get ready because you know.
But the only hard thing though is with like because Kevin Durant can't control where he goes, or it's just like, are you gonna trade a heavy load of assets just for a 1-year rental?
So I think
that's why it's not going to be either. They're not going to get really what they want unless they trade him to his preferred destination.
And so I think the big question is we know Kevin Durant's about to turn 37, so that factors in. And then also, if you think about it from just Phoenix's perspective, they want flexibility. That's their problem. They have no flexibility. They're a second-able team. They have no flexibility. So Kevin Durant is their most tradable asset to gain flexibility. Now, to gain assets, their most tradable asset is Devin Booker. So,
I mean, they got somebody they want to trade, but they can't trade him.
Well, they can't trade. Hey, listen, they're stuck. Well, I don't say what they stuck together like, but they're stuck together. Basically. So
how many years Bradley Beal got on his contract? Like what,
2 years? I think 2 years. Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah,
I think the last year's a player option, which he's picking up because it's like $54 million or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So from Phoenix's perspective, it's do we want flexibility or do we want assets? Trading Kevin Durant screams they want flexibility. They got to take the assets they can get in any deal. Now they're going to take the best deal, whatever they view as the best deal. But at the end of the day, moving Kevin Durant is about flexibility more than anything.
Yeah. Now, Kevin Durant gave 3 preferred destinations. He had Rockets, Spurs, and your Miami Heat. So before I ask who will land Kevin Durant that question, Sean, what is the chance of your Heat getting Kevin Durant, and what are you willing to give up to get Kevin Durant if you Miami? Where if you see Miami give up this, give me your scenario where you see Miami do one thing that'll make you mad, but you got Kevin Durant, and give me a scenario where it's like a trade where, okay, I'm cool with this, what they gave up. This is a good haul for Kevin Durant.
The only thing that would make me upset is if they gave up Bam or Khalil Ware to get Kevin Durant.
Okay. Well, Bam ain't going nowhere. We can tell.
Right. Bam's not going anywhere. And I think
Where I don't know.
Well, Ware, they basically said Ware is untouchable.
Okay.
So as long as those 2 guys are not involved, and Davion Mitchell's a restricted free agent, but I expect him to be back as a restricted free agent. But those are the 3 guys that I don't want to go anywhere personally. Anybody else? Okay.
Your all-star gone?
They're all-star, but yes.
Your hero.
No, their hero. No, and honestly, I mean, and I don't think they would move him to get Kevin Durant because
I don't think so.
They want to hold on to that piece, I believe, because they have a bigger plan for 2026 potentially. So that you don't want to necessarily trade hero in a Kevin Durant move. That said, when I look at the Spurs and I look at the Rockets, they have more assets potentially to give up for Kevin Durant. So I expect those 2 to be the favorites.
Also, too, just was another part of this Kevin Durant, what I've seen too. The San Antonio Spurs said they're keeping the number 2 pick. They're not trading it.
Yes.
So that's gonna be another thing with it too. Because I think honestly, the Spurs really want to just get them and not give up the number 2 pick and whatever contract that's close to matching. But now, Shai, you gave me what the Heat thing. So who will answer the question? Who will land Kevin Durant? If you was a betting man, who you see getting Kevin Durant?
This is gonna sound crazy, SB. Whichever team offers the best package that Phoenix wants.
Come on, Shai. Give me your team, man. If you was a betting man.
The problem is for me, SB, is the team I think should land him and should be fighting hard to land him is Minnesota.
Yeah, but he don't want to go there. But
so,
I try to get him there. That'll get him over the hump.
Yeah, and so that's where I think he should want. I'm gonna say where he should want to go. The team that should be fighting hardest to get him, because they got to try to maximize this Anthony Edwards window right now. before he says, "Hey, get me out of here." So that
I'm just waiting that contract to be able to go ahead and sign him to Chicago. Y'all want him to be Jordan so much, just put him in a Bulls jersey.
Oh, he ain't coming to Chicago. He ain't coming to Chicago.
He gonna come in. It's just gonna see what happens.
No. We'll see. No, we'll see. But in all seriousness, no. I think it's such a fluid situation because again, it's going to be a matter of what these teams are willing to give up, and ultimately, when you get Kevin Durant, it changes your timeline. Yeah. Because I think again, the Spurs. When I look at the Spurs are building through young talent. Yeah, they just picked up, but getting De'Aaron Fox kind of changed their timeline a little bit. Getting Kevin Durant there really changes your timeline because it's saying, hey, we got about a 2-year window with this particular group and this particular roster. Houston, kind of the same situation. Again, I think Houston would make sense, but I don't know if he fits their timeline.
Yeah, so Houston overachieved too. So I think that's speeding up their timeline too. That's how they overachieved last year.
Right. And again, I think it comes back down to, they don't have a closer, and they don't really, they don't really have a guy who, late in games that they can just say, hey, we need a bucket, go get it, and we'll know you can get it. They don't have that at all. So, those two teams would make sense. But again, it's all about timeline.
Yeah. When I'm looking at both teams, I think if I'm the Phoenix Suns, I probably would want to go to the Rockets with it. Obviously, like you said, Minnesota, because the top of 20 they're going on. But if you could find a way to get Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, and maybe Shepherd, I'm down. Give me. If I could get those, I give you those 3 players and a pick. I'm taking that guy. I think Cam Whitmore is going to be a great player. I just figured that I don't know why he can't get in the rotation with the Rockets, but if I'm any team, even I heard the Bulls was actually kind of talk about trying to get Cam Whitmore too. I hope we get him. I want a Cam Whitmore. I think he's going to be a great player.
Yeah, I think it's just a numbers game. That's all. It's just a numbers game in Houston. That's all. So
yeah. And then to go to the Spurs, because the Spurs is what I think their trade will probably be centering more around like Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, maybe.
Yeah, So
if I had to pick between the 3, I probably rather have Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore, and Shepherd. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Now again, that 14th pick the Spurs have may be very attractive. I don't know if Houston would send that 9th pick as a part of the deal for Kevin Durant. So I think it's going to come down to, what the picks look like. I think Phoenix would probably rather deal with Houston because Houston controls much of their draft capital. So if they can get some control back of their draft capital that Houston has control of currently, I think that will benefit Phoenix, a little bit more. But again, we'll see.
Then if you the Spurs, right? So who will be, say if you land Kevin Durant and the Spurs, you probably put Vassell, Harrison Barnes in a 14th pick, but you keep 2. Then you go draft Harper, because I think Harper would probably be where they go over
no, it's Harper. It's
Harper over Ace Bailey. Because obviously Cooper Flagg's getting picked first.
Right.
So do you run the young gun lineup off the bench with Stephon Castle and Harper as your backup off the bench with KD, or do you do Castle, or do you do Harper, Fox, KD, Wemby?
The second one.
The second one, both of them off. I think both of them off the bench would be crazy.
I think Castle's a starter next year without question. He's proven he should be a starter.
I think if KD on the lineup, I'd rather have him off the bench that he can actually like score the ball, because I want the ball be in his hand. But KD and Fox and Wemby, he's not gonna really get no shots.
Yeah, KD ain't coming off the bench.
Yeah, KD not coming off the bench. So that's why I said I'd rather have Castle. If we land KD, I want Castle to come off the bench so he can get his shots and he can operate the ball. Because if he in the starting lineup with Fox, KD, and Wemby, they just gonna make him a catch and shoot guy, and you're not using Castle talents to the right percentage. For me, that's how I probably have called the bench. Yeah,
but I think somebody said earlier, and they made a good point about KD, that depending on the situation he goes to, he might be in that Olympic mellow role where it's just, hey, listen, we just need you to get to catch and shoot, get buckets, we got everything else set up. We just need you to be just the lethal shooter you are.
And close the game when we need you to close the game. That's about
it. And close if we need you to close. And so because he is 37, and and so that's why I think when I look at the Spurs and the Rockets in particular, I feel like those situations are better in terms of the overall roster setup, depending on what they give up. But that said, I think this trade will be done before the draft. There's no doubt in my mind he'll be gone before the draft, but it's just a matter of where.
And I think the Suns would preferably trade him east, but we can wait and see though. How it goes. All right, we got to get into some football. But if I had to pick, pick a team. I think Kevin Durant's going to be on San Antonio Spurs. If I had to pick. We got to talk about the Bengals real quick before we talk about these NBA finals, because the game is getting ready to come on soon. We got to go some quick NFL stories. Trey Hendrickson. I'm sorry, no. Stewart, but I'd expose what the next story is, but obviously talk one big, I talk about the other one. But rookie Stewart, Shamar Stewart leaves minicamp amid contract dispute. Obviously, this was going on because they put like a clause or certain wordings in his contract where if he get like injured or any off the field injuries or anything crazy happen, they could like take away his guaranteed money. And he was upset by that, which is highly understandable, because why wouldn't you just give him a regular rookie contract? Why would you put that in his contract? So, Sean, what's your mindset over the whole Shamar Stewart situation, and who's in the right, who's in the wrong, and how bad does this make the Bengals organization look?
I mean, this is the Bengals being the Bengals, right? We call them the Bungles for a reason. This is who they are. This is what they do. So I'm not going to act overly surprised by how they're handling business. Now, one of the big issues is that this is the first year they are trying to do this with a first-round contract. The last two picks they picked in the first round, Darius Mims and Miles Murphy, they didn't have this offsetting language in their contract. So that is Shamar Stewart's issue, and his representatives are handling it, I believe, right. It's like, hey, you didn't put it in theirs. Why do I have to be the poster child and the first one to get it?
Right.
So now there are other organizations that do this. They have done this for a while. The New York Giants, for example, they do it with their first round picks. It's just standard for them. This has not been standard for the Bengals.
Right.
So, and again, this could be the Bengals added someone to their front office who recommended they start doing this, to protect the organization, blah, blah, blah. That could be why this is happening. I don't have that as fact. I'm just throwing out a scenario. What I am saying is Shamar Stewart and his reps are saying, no, we will not be the first ones you do this to. So the Bengals are, they can make a decision, and the decision can be, hey, this is we're holding firm on this, and that's it. Or they can acquiesce and say, no, maybe we need to do this with next year with someone who's maybe not going to push back as much on it. But now that this has gotten public, whoever they pick first next year, maybe they very well do the same thing.
Same thing.
So, so that remains to be seen. But I will say Shamar Stewart said something very interesting. He said the Bengals would rather win arguments than win games. And for a rookie to say that, that's very telling. And I'm going to just leave it at that.
And why would they just trade him then, if that's the case?
So,
well, you can't trade him because he can't. So I heard that he can re-enter the draft next year.
He could re-enter the draft next year if he's not signed, I believe, by week 10. I think he has to sign by week 10, or he technically can go back into the draft next year. Generally, though, NFL teams don't trade draft rights. It doesn't happen often. Normally, I mean, you'll see it every now and again where a team will draft a player and then they end up trading that draft rights. But it's not often. Where in the NBA, that's very common. So it's not something that's common, and it can happen. It can happen, but that remains to be seen. And again, if you're the Bengals, you just spent a first round pick on this guy. You're going to want a first round pick in return. You just spent a first round pick on this guy, or otherwise you wasted a first round pick. So, we'll see what happens. But I don't think this story is going to go anywhere anytime soon.
No, I don't think the story will go nowhere anytime soon. Too, I just think this shows how bad of an organization the Bengals have been. Obviously, and then it's like you doing this right after you just paid your two wide receivers all that money. So it's like, and then you got another guy on the other side of the defense that you're having trouble paying him. So then now you're doing the same thing to another defensive player. So now it's like, all right, Bengals, y'all really just don't care about defense, or just really just you think Joe Burrow is going to save you guys that much? But I don't know. You can't win every game 50-50, 51-52, whatever, because it's going to be a lot of touchdowns scored in Cincinnati when you play Cincinnati. I just think, like you said, what was the purpose of doing this now when you haven't done this at all in your organization at all? So why would you do it now? And I just think it comes in bad taste and bad timing. I'm trying to see what this dog doing. Like okay, but yeah, coming bad taste and bad timing. But then next up on the list too, Sean, is the other Bengal, Trey Hendrickson. He's resuming contract talks with the Bengals. What you think about this?
I mean, he had half of their sacks last season, so if you want to have at least a decent defense coming into the year, you probably want to take care of the guy who had half your sacks last year. I think he had 48% of their sacks last year. So it kind of makes sense. Now, from their perspective, again, they spent a first-round pick 2 years ago on Miles Murphy, defensive end.
Yes,
they just drafted Shamar Stewart, defensive end. They probably don't want to overly invest in Trey Hendrickson. So, they got to make a decision as an organization at some point. Maybe they'll find some median, some meeting in the middle. But, again, when you look at the contracts that Myles Garrett just signed and that
Michael Parsons finished out.
Yeah, Max Crosby just signed, and that, TJ Watt is likely to sign before the season starts. You remember, yesterday's price ain't today's price, and today's price will not be tomorrow's price.
So you better sign them now.
They better take care of it now.
No, you're right. They got to take care of it now. I just think, like I said, this is another showing of how bad this organization is. Or if you don't care about defense that much, I don't want to hear nobody on the Bengals organization complaining when people dropping 40 points a game. I'm telling you right now, anytime it's a parlay betting, I'm betting a lot of touchdowns. If I know the Cincinnati Bengals playing, I'm betting some touchdowns if just don't get signed. But my same mindset too, Sean. If you're not gonna sign, them, trade them. Get something for them. Get something for them. That's all I'm saying. We gotta go. We're getting close to the end, Sean. I know the game getting ready to start.
Well, yeah, you got about 30 minutes for a game.
30 minutes because it's like I heard they actually they said they're gonna actually do the starting lineups.
Yeah, they're gonna show the player intros. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. What game we on? Game 5. All right.
But they haven't done it since 2013, so
they gotta lock in, man. But I'm glad the fans actually say something. But we gotta get to the baseball real quick, and then we gonna get into the finals preview. Ohtani is returning to the mound on Monday versus Padres. How you feel about this? This is superhuman, the real life creative player, Ohtani.
I mean, obviously, when they signed him to a 10-year, $700 million contract, part of it was they thought they were getting two players, a pitcher and a hitter, and a DH. So, it only makes sense that, he does, when he's ready, physically ready to return to the mound. I know he had the elbow surgery, some time ago. He hasn't pitched in a year and a half or a year over, obviously, since he's been with the Dodgers. So, it's going to be interesting to see how well he pitches. Will they have him on a pitch count? I would think more than likely you would think more likely they would. But obviously, this is one of the best players in the game, if not the best player in the game.
Might be
might be the best, depending on your criteria. But obviously to watch him pitch and to watch him do what he does, it's exciting for fans. But primarily, you just hope that he's healthy and pitching like he did when he was with the Angels.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna be pitching as much he did on Angels and as successful, but I still think like he gonna be a threat. But also, I wouldn't go into this game and expect to see a all-star like performance, all MLB type performance on the mound because like you said, Sean, he haven't pitched in a year. So I think it would be smart for the Dodgers to do like get him on the mound. If it starts to look shaky, take him out early. Just take. I mean, you know what I'm saying, switch it up. You know what I'm saying, give him at least like three, four innings. And if it doesn't look good, then just go ahead and switch them out with another pitcher. Because you don't want to risk it too. Him getting injured again, and like you said, he ain't trying to shock my boy confidence. Yeah. Next up, though, we got a trade that happened. The Boston Red Sox trade hitter Rafael Devers to the San Francisco Giants for a right-hander Jordan Hicks, left-handed Cal Harrison, and a pair of prospects in the outfield, James Tibbs and righty Jose Bello. How you feel about this trade, Sean?
Well, first, when it came across the screen last night, I was very shocked because it broke during the game last night, the baseball game last night. It was very surprising. First of all, obviously, you see what I'm wearing. You see the logo behind me. You know who I roll with. I know who you roll with. I like when the Red Sox mess up. I love it. But when you think about, and I just want to put context on this, Rafael Devers was supposed to be basically the cushion of letting Mookie Betts go. Right. And this was someone they signed when he was 16 years old, right? He was 16 when he signed with the Red Sox from the Dominican Republic. So, he's been someone who's come up in that organization from the get-go. And he was the face of the organization and really the last kind of real star from that 2018 team that won the World Series, luckily. So, it was a little, and they paid him. He's on a 10-year, $300+ million deal. They paid him to be their franchise player, to be the face of their franchise, and on the field, particularly as a hitter, he lives up to that. But the Red Sox, I think, messed this up badly. Number one, I don't think they even said anything to him about trying to get Alex Bregman when they signed him. Then they tell him, hey, you're not going to play third base. You're going to just DH. He didn't want to DH. He wanted to play third base. He likes playing third base. He wanted to play third base, but he said, okay, if I got a DH, I'll DH, whatever. And then their first baseman gets hurt, and they say, hey, well, we need you to play first base. He's like, and I think Rafael Devers said enough's enough. Right. And so whether he was a malcontent, whether he was whatever in the locker room, not going to get into that, but I would imagine that, the communication between the organization and your star player didn't seem like it was there from outside looking in. And that ultimately led to him ultimately being traded to the Giants. Again, I think front office tried to intervene. Ownership tried to intervene. Ownership, they never want to intervene in these situations. They don't want to fly out anywhere and meet with a player and talk to a player. That's not how they get down. So the fact they had tried to do that with him, I think again by that point the relationship was broken, and they had to move on, and so they made this move. Now, from the Giants' perspective, again, the Giants are in the same division as the Dodgers. Buster Posey, who's their former catcher who runs their front office, he wants to compete. He wants to build a competitive roster for Bruce Bochy. Getting Rafael Devers does that. So from my perspective, it's a good move for the Giants. Obviously, if you watch Rafael Devers over the last several years, he's been a Yankee killer. So I'm glad he's out the AL East personally. But that said, from the Giants' perspective, they got a really good player, particularly, and probably their best left-handed hitter since Barry Bonds. So this made sense for the Giants to do. So,
that definitely made sense. it's the Red Sox. I don't. You know, it's good to get them up out of there, but yeah, I'm just enjoying it. And then sometimes, Sean, your girl must say, you know, I had nothing nice to say. Don't say that at all. So I'm happy. I'm just chilling. I'm just watching the house burn on fire and just watching it burn. That's about it for me. I seen it. I laughed at it, and I was like, let's get back to the championship. That's all I was worried about.
And you know the crazy part, SB, is we played a 3-game series with the Red Sox this weekend. Mm-hmm. They swept the series, and nobody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about this Devers trade.
Yep.
So good job, Red Sox. Good job. Good PR job there.
Good PR. But let us know what you guys think about the Red Sox trade. Go Yankees, by the way. We got another story that we got to talk about, Sean. The NBA will be better off without Stephen A. It was an article that was written. It was on Sports Media Watch by John Lewis, and I guess I read a little bit of the article. I don't know did you read the whole thing of it?
Yeah.
What it was about more? Because I was say I could probably pretty much figure about how they've been covering the game. It's not been good. It's more clickbaity than actual knowledge and talk of the sport. But go ahead. Why would the NBA be better off without Stephen A. Sean in this article? What is he talking about?
I mean, I think we've been over the last probably several months, but particularly in the last couple of months, SB really doing a lot of talk about how the NBA is being covered from a media perspective. And when you look at the loudest voice from an NBA perspective in terms of the person who's on television the most, it's Stephen A. Smith. But the way he talks about the game, coupled with the fact that he literally got caught in living color, not paying attention to a game that he's there to cover because he's on his phone playing solitaire, which if you're going to be on your phone playing a card game, play free cell, at least play something that challenges you. Solitaire ain't that hard, but we'll move on. When you get caught doing that, it just further emphasizes why you shouldn't be talking about the sport, the NBA, and why you shouldn't be a part of the NBA coverage. Now, I will say that, and this is again allegedly, Stephen A. has wanted to be a part of NBA coverage on ESPN going back since the beginning.
Yeah,
since the beginning of the time that he was on ESPN. The person who put the kibosh on it was David Stern, allegedly. That David Stern was the type to say no. And David Stern, when he calls you, David Stern had a reputation for being a threatener.
Okay.
Yeah, no, David Stern ruled with an iron fist in the truest sense. I hope one day people really do their research about David Stern. David Stern was not to be played with.
No, he definitely. I know. I've heard a couple stories about David Stern.
Not to be played with at all. Players did not want to go see David Stern in his office. It was not going to be good. Right. Reporters, journalists did not want to get a phone call from David Stern about something they wrote about the NBA. It was not going to be good. If it was completely off base or negative, it was not going to be good. So fast forward, Stephen A. ends up covering he ends up as a part of the NBA not countdown. Yeah, ESPN, I don't know what they call it. Their show, because I don't watch it because it sucks. But he's a part of their countdown or their NBA pregame show and postgame and halftime show, and it's just an extension of First Take.
That's literally all it is.
That's all it is. So the question is it really good for how the game is covered? And the answer overwhelmingly is no. Particularly when you say everything's narrative. It's, I saw something today and I didn't watch it because I can't watch him because I'm off that. I've been off that for years. But today he said, the key for the Pacers to win is to shoot the ball better.
No, I'm not trying to curse.
Yeah.
No ish, Sherlock Holmes. Duh. If anybody shoots better, you got a better chance of winning. What how about maybe explain to us what the Pacers can do to get better shots, to shoot better? What part of the floor that they should attack that should be better? And then I even see some Sean too with this, and I'm like, it's getting like crazy. I'd only seen it was a clip because I think Lowe did a video on it. And he said if Giannis don't win, his career is a failure. I'm like, bro, this man just won the championship in Milwaukee. They haven't seen the championship since the 70s. And that's what I was like. Remember, I told you when we were talking about possibly Giannis getting traded, and I seen the video say he won't go nowhere. I'm like, everybody don't need to bounce around and ring chase everywhere. Y'all made this narrative of that a certain amount of rings or wins or accomplishments make you a failure. Giannis, if he don't win another ring, will end his career as a top 15 player all time. He done had MVPs, defensive players of the year, all NBA stats are crazy out the roof. But you telling me his career is a failure because he only got one ring and he won in Milwaukee. Nobody expects Milwaukee to win the championship. But that's what we talking about. Imagine this, the NBA Finals is on right now too. But that's what we talking about.
Right. So yeah, so it's just again, it's that thing of how's the game being covered. Mm-hmm. And again, I think one of the issues is that and I'm just saying this, and I think again, this has been a big part of the ESPN problem over the last couple of years in particular, is the stories now are not about reporting what's going on. It's about how or who said what about what's going on.
Yeah, it's more stories about what somebody said than it is about what's going on.
Right. And the who said it is not someone external from ESPN. It's usually Stephen A or someone else. And particularly again, Stephen A is the poster child for this. Stephen A said this. What do you think about what Stephen A said? Well, who cares? Because again, a lot of times, many times he's wrong. So who cares?
Yeah.
So, and again, this is not a stomp on Stephen A or anything like that. But Stephen A, I think in many ways feels as if he's bigger than the sport and bigger than the game.
Yes.
When you watch him walk into the arena and it's like, are you serious?
It don't feel like he's a fan of the game. But I told you true to that. I know he don't watch the games or haven't paid attention to what's going on. Because he on air 24/7. He's on air from whatever time First Take come on until like 8, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night some days, depending on what you're doing. How do you have time to watch the games? He doing First Take, the Stephen A. Smith show. Then he got another radio show. Then he goes to Get Up, whatever, all the other shows. He get on. The man be on air from 7 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night sometimes. So you're not watching the sport.
He's just signed a deal with Mad Dog Radio to do a show from 1 to 3 p.m. Taking over Michelle Beatles in them time slot on Sirius.
Yeah, you know why he did that. That was oh yeah, I remember what you said that a long time ago. Checkmate. That was one of those moves. But that's their story for a different day. That was definitely a checkmate though. But,
right. And so the question is the league better off? What has Stephen A given the league?
Nothing. He benefited way more. He didn't get nothing. He didn't give the league nothing.
Thank you. So yeah. So is it better off? And I know next year we're inside the NBA, being on ESPN or simulcast.
Ain't gonna be on there.
Maybe. I don't know. I hope not.
He will.
I hope not. And if it is, I hope it's just a quick 2 minutes and then move on. Mm-hmm. But it's I don't want to go get personal, but I'll just say I think the NBA is way better off without Stephen A. Smith covering the game. And again, notice he's not on NFL Monday Night Countdown or anything like that.
No.
Why? Because they don't want him. The NFL does not want him to be a part of covering their game like that.
Because it's like you said, it's not with him. It's never it's more narratives, and he don't praise the players at all. He don't big up the game. Everything he sells is negative. Everything got to be a hot take. Everything got to be some shock jock stuff. Everything got to be clickbaity, or he said, she said. It's argue. So that's. I feel like that's the only problem.
Right, but this is what happens when you, as an organization, and I'm talking about ESPN, prioritize clicks over credibility.
Yeah, because you're going to run out of that stuff at some point, or people are just going to get turned away from it. Because it's cool to have those takes when it's meant to be there, but the concept, the main concept of what's supposed to be going on, the integrity, the credibility still has to be there. Because now it can be like, no matter how much crazy stuff that either one of us probably could have said, nobody ever questioned credibility of our show. Never. Because we know we talking about, and if we say something, we mean what we say. It has became out and been proven on multiple times where Stephen A. or somebody who worked at that show, Kendrick Perkins, mainly, has came out and said, they told me to go on air and say this. The Phoenix Suns is a dynasty, quote to be exact. Go look it up. That he said that. So when you say things like that, it takes away the credibility of the show. But one more story, Sean. And then because we got to talk about the NBA Finals. NBA Finals preview game 5 is tonight in the next about 10 minutes. Series tied 2-2. I thought the Pacers had a beer in the water. Then the Thunder has an outstanding comeback. During this last game. Outstanding fourth quarter. SGA go MVP mode. Who you got winning tonight? And what adjustments do you think the Pacers need to make to not let that happen again? And also what the Thunder need to do to recreate what they did in their fourth quarter. I was like, remember, I text you. I was like, man, Rick Carlisle. I was like, man, this man coaching, he going crazy. And right after I text you that, the game flipped. I was like, man, I think I jinxed the Pacers. But what you think though?
No, I think a couple things, SB. One, obviously, both teams have been able to steal a game in this series, and it just happened they stole these games on the road.
Yes.
Obviously, the Pacers stealing game 1, with a crazy fourth quarter and a late comeback, and Tyrese Haliburton hitting the shot, and then what the Thunder were able to do Friday night in Indianapolis. To me, this really comes down to both teams getting off to good starts. Again, which we saw, I think, Friday night. Both teams got off to good starts, and then the Pacers were able to get out there a little bit. And then obviously in the fourth quarter, they had a 7-point lead with roughly like 4 minutes to go or something like that.
Yep,
if I remember correctly. The biggest issue for the Pacers with me was late in the game. Pascal Siakam didn't touch the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And when Siakam to me is there, he's the guy that the Thunder have no answer for at all. So him not touching the ball was a massive issue, and I'm gonna bet that on Saturday or Sunday when they did film that they probably talked about that he can't go not touching the ball late in these games or getting, and I'm saying touch, whether he shoots, whether he play makes or gets it.
He need the ball in his hands.
He's got to touch the ball. It should be he and Haliburton, again, depending on the scenario, really tag teaming. But I do think a couple things. The foul trouble didn't help the Pacers. I know Eastman got in foul trouble late in the game. That didn't help them much. And then the other thing for me with the Pacers is the Pacers have done, I think, a really good job on the boards in this series. Late in the fourth quarter in particular, they couldn't rebound the basketball. They couldn't clear the ball, even when they got stopped. So the Thunder were able to get some second chance opportunities. Tonight, obviously, it's a 2-game. It's the best 2 out of 3 now.
Right.
We got a series, and that's the most important thing is we got a series. And I think, whoever wins tonight, I believe, wins the series. That said, I hope it goes 7 personally, because this has turned out to be one of the better finals of recent history.
What I want to say is for everybody who doubt this finals, who was complaining, this has been one of the best finals we had in a long time. basketball. I think, honestly, watching this final, Sean, the NBA, if you don't stop, if basketball needed this because they needed two teams, small market teams. It wasn't no narrative about these two teams at all. So now it's just pure basketball and basketball alone. And I think it needed this because now I haven't. You can't make up in there. That's why everybody been talking. That's why all these major markets been talking about all these other things outside the NBA finals because there ain't no narrative that they get spun on this finals. It's just pure basketball. But for me, for both things, I think for what the Pacers need to do, one, except the fact SGA gonna do what SGA gonna do. It's those other guys. Caruso getting 20, we can't let that happen. We can't let the other guys, we got to stop the other guys. That's one. And then my second point for the Pacers that I got, give Pascal Siakam, you got to find a way to get Pascal Siakam the ball. Let Pascal Siakam score. He is the X factor. He is the difference maker for me. You got to find, I don't care what type of spots you got him, find a way to get him the ball. If he got to run it up just to get the ball in his hands, you got to do that. And also, like you said, foul trouble too. I think that was bad. The Pacers need to kind of recreate more what they was doing the first half. I mean, the first three quarters. They could win the game. They just had to close out better. For the Thunder, I think getting everybody else involved is very important. Get more turnovers and score off those turnovers. And also dominate in the paint like they did last time. I think if I'm looking at the stat too, they had 50 points in the paint. I love that aggression from the paint because with SGA and all the other guys attacking the paint, J-Dub, those open up slots for the shooters too. And also when you get easier buckets and you get buckets more down the paint, it'll be harder for the Pacers to actually run up and down the court and score. And I just think if OKC does that, dominate inside the paint, play great defense, they will win tonight's game again. So I think I got the Thunder winning tonight.
One thing I want to see, though, the Pacers haven't done it, and they don't usually use this lineup a lot. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to see them go with the bigger front court just to change things up if Nembhard or Nesmith get into foul trouble. So putting Toppin in at the 4 and letting Siakam slide to the 3. It's a lineup they've been hesitant to use, but they have used it in the past, and it's actually a pretty good lineup for them. Doesn't affect their spacing or anything like that, but it gives them a little more size. So again, when they're trapping hard and they're switching hard, that again, whether it's on SGA or even J-Dub, a bigger body is usually switching on those guys. So I would like to see if Rick Carlisle, this is only if Nesmith or Nembhard get in the foul trouble late and they need to come out to play Toppin. Play Toppin with Siakam and with Miles Turner.
And Obi Toppin been balling out. But Shaq, with the finals for the game 5 greatest starts, so let's go ahead and shut it down. Episode 70, who you got?
Episode 70.
I got Zach Martin for man.
You said Zach Martin? I would never pick a no, I'm kidding. I'm gonna go Rayfield Wright.
Rayfield Wright. Yeah, and last question, Rayfield Wright. I like last question in the show. Shout out Sports PSP. We got to get you on the pod too, brother. X Factor, quick. Who's your X Factor for the game?
My X Factor for which team?
Both. Give me one for both.
X Factor for Oklahoma City. I'm gonna go with Wiggins.
Wiggins, okay.
Yeah, Wiggins. And X Factor for the Pacers, I'm going to go with Shepherd.
Ooh. Mine is Alex Caruso and Pascal Siakam. Because both of them have a good game. If either one of them have a good game, that's another team will win. It's been another great episode of Real Takes on Fake the Base with SB and Sean Webb. And we will see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Real takes over fake debates.